To get started on this exercise, you should have downloaded the Fruits and Vegetables folder from the Moodle page. When you open this folder, you'll see there's a variety of different fruits and vegetables to pick and choose from. There are 6 fruits and 6 vegetables. For this exercise, I only want you to pick 2 fruits and any 2 vegetables to colorize. It can be any one of your choice, and there's no particular order you have to create them in. To get started, let's jump into Photoshop and create our new document. We'll go to File, down to New. The dimensions for our document are going to be 6 inches wide by 6 inches tall. Keep the resolution at 300 pixels per inch. Keep the color mode at RGB color mode, and the background is going to be white. Also, for now, make sure your artboards is left unchecked. We'll say Create, and this is the way our document should be set up. The next thing we want to do is to open up our Layers panel and make sure it's active and easily noticeable. I'm going to go to File, down to Place Embedded, locate the Fruit and Vegetables folder, and pick any of the fruit and vegetables that you want to work on. For me, I'm going to choose the pear and click on Place. Remember, if you ever see an X on any of the images that you've placed, it's asking you to commit to any transformation. So you can either hit the check at the top or the return key on your keyboard. Whenever you place something, notice your Layers panel will have its own individual layer with the name of the file as the layer name. Now, the way I set up my document is going to be exactly the same for all of your other paintings. And the kind of technique I'm going to be doing is a very professional way of giving you the most control over your document. The first thing we want to do is to create a new layer that's below our fruit or vegetable image layer. So I'm going to click on New Layer at the very bottom. Notice that when it does this, it always creates a new layer on top of whatever you have selected. So I'm going to click and drag it below my fruit pear layer. I can also double click the name, and we're going to call this the solid color layer. You'll see why in just a second. With this layer selected, let's go over to a toolbox and locate the paintbrush tool. Just make sure you have the regular brush tool, because there are some other paintbrush related tools that do some different stuff. Make sure the brush is what you have. Also, at the very top, pay close attention to the options for the brush that you have. What we want to do for this exercise is to just use the default round brushes. I've got a soft round brush and even hard round brushes. The main difference between these two is the edge will either be very, very soft or very, very hard depending on how you have it set up. Also up here you can change up the size of your brush. If I make it a little bit larger, you can see how the size of my brush gets much larger from here. Next, make sure you're working in normal mode at 100% opacity and 100% flow. If you're using a pen tablet to do drawing, you can also turn on and off your pressure sensitivity up here. For this exercise, I'm going to do everything with just my mouse. Now, with this selected, I'm also going to open up my color panel and be able to quickly and easily choose whatever color that I want to work on. Notice that I have the solid color layer selected. If I was to choose, say, a pear green kind of color, say something like this, and I started to paint on top of this, you can see that it shows up in the solid color layer, but because my fruit layer is blocking it, I can't see it. So the first thing we need to do is to change the blending mode of our fruit or vegetable layer. With it selected, let's go up to Normal and choose Multiply. Multiply will allow you to quickly and easily get rid of any lighter colored pixels, in this case the white ones, and only keep the darker outline. Now when I select my solid color layer and I start to paint on it, you can see very quickly and easily how it will show up and show through my actual painting. The other thing I'm going to do, let's go back to our fruit and pear layer, is to turn on the little lock icon just to make sure I don't accidentally try to make any changes or movement for this layer. Everything that I do for now is going to be in my solid color layer. With that selected, let's go up to Select, All. This will select everything on the layer, and then I'm going to hit the Delete button on my keyboard to delete everything away. Now we can go to Select and deselect that. Now let's see if we can quickly and easily fill in some large areas of color. To do this, I'm going to find my paint bucket tool. The paint bucket tool is usually hiding underneath your gradient tool. With it selected, let's go up to our tool options. Make sure your tolerance is relatively high. I'm going to set it up to be around 100. Make sure contiguous and all layers is checked on. Those two are very, very important. With both of those checked on, I can click inside of my pear, and very quickly and easily you can see it fills in until the entire boundary of the pear is completely colorized. Let's do the same for the other parts of the pear. So let's choose something that'll be more of a stem color, and let's choose maybe a yellowish leaf color. All I have to do is click on the inside of it. If you accidentally click on the outside, you can always do Command Z to undo, or if you accidentally click on the black area, you'll notice that it doesn't really fill it in, but you can always Command Z and undo that if you make that mistake. Now let's check out what we have. In our Layers panel, we've got our fruit outline layer. If I turn off visibility of that, you can see our solid color outlines, and it looks kind of weird now without the white outline. And then below that, we've got just our regular background color. What we want to do next is to be able to paint inside of just these areas and add some shadows and highlights. I'm going to go back to my toolbox and select my paintbrush tool. Let's work on the inside of the pear first. If I hold down my Option key, notice that it swaps over to the little color picker, and with one click I can very quickly and easily pick up that green color. From here in my color picker, I can choose a darker version of this, and this will be my shadow that I want to add to my pear. If I go up to the size of my brush, let's make it something relatively large, something that'll take up a large area. Also, I'm going to set the hardness of my brush to be very small. This way I have a nice soft edge, and softer edges are easier for blending. This will let me paint on this particular area. Now to add a shadow, if I click and drag around, you can see how it very quickly and easily goes outside of the edges of my pear, and that's not something that I want to do. What I need to be able to do is to mask inside of and keep all of the painting on my pear itself, and not go outside those edges. Here's how we're going to do that. In your Layers panel, let's create one more new layer above your solid color. I'm going to double click the name of it, and we're going to call this the Highlights and Shadows. You can call it Details or whatever. And with this one selected, we're going to turn it into a clipping mask layer. So if I zoom out, with that Highlights and Shadows layer selected, go up to Layer, down to Create Clipping Mask. Now check out the layer of what we have. It's got a little arrow pointing down to the solid color layer. Whenever I click and drag now, everything that I paint automatically stays inside of that particular area. This is because whatever is painted in here only shows up if there's pixels or something solid on the layer that it's pointing to. In this case, it's pointing to the pear. So very quickly and easily I can paint in and on all of the shadows that I have. Here's another good tip. If I go up to my opacity and drop it from 100% to something like 30 to 40%, this will let me paint on not so dark of a hue, and I can quickly and easily blend in the different shapes that I have. So if I wanted to blend those shadows and place them into here, that's one quick and easy way of doing that. Let's add some highlights. Again, I'm going to hold down the Option key, click on my green, then from my color picker I can choose a lighter version of the green. Since I'm still using a low opacity brush, I can very quickly and smoothly add in highlights to this particular edge of my pear. So working it back and forth, you can easily add color, highlights, and shadows. You can even add other colors or textures to the fruits and vegetables that you have. Let's repeat this process for all of the different parts. I want to see highlights and shadows on the stem and also the leaf. Let's do the stem. Hold down your Option key, choose that brown color. If I wanted to add more of a shadow to it, let's choose a darker color. I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller so I can work inside of that smaller area. I'm going to paint on a darker bit right here. We'll go back in here, choose a highlight. Let's add just a highlight right here to the tip. Finally, let's do the same for the leaf. Select it. We'll make my brush size a little bit larger. And maybe instead of just getting darker, it's actually going to get a little bit greener as it moves around. Feel free to play around with the colors. You don't have to stay with just in that. So in this case, I'm adding a little bit of orange to it. And with that, we're finished with colorizing our image that we have. Notice that what you have for each of the layers. So if I turned off my fruit layer, this is my highlights and shadows layer, and then my solid colors layer. It's very important that you have them set up exactly this way. Once you're finished with this, we need to save up the Photoshop document. So let's go to File and Save or Save As. If you haven't already given it a name, we'll save mine to the desktop, and we'll call this Pear, and keep the format at Photoshop. The Photoshop format will save up all of your layers. When you hit Save, it'll ask you to keep the maximize compatibility options. We'll say OK to that. Remember, you're going to be creating 4 different illustrations, so be sure to save 2 different fruits and 2 different vegetables.